Paramount is set to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, and Netflix has now officially backed out of the deal. And we got a lot to discuss because this has honestly been a saga that Zach and I have been following very closely that has had a lot of weird left turns that has left us with a pretty bad taste in our mouth. We are going to break down how we got to this place, some key points of what's going on currently, and maybe some positives of what we could get from
I have one.
Paramount. Save it for the positives. I like that you have one. I don't know if I have any, but we'll see if they come to mind. Let's break this bad boy down and go over this together with hopefully no weird pop-ups while I'm talking. All right, so where we're at right now, okay? This comes to us from LA Times. They broke it down and gave us a little history of how we got to here. But first, let's break down just a little bullet points that they give us in the beginning. Paramount Skydance beat Netflix in the bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery in a deal valued at more than $111 billion to claim HBO, CNN, and Warner Brothers Film Studios. Billionaire Larry Ellison helped lift his son's deal with his vast wealth and ties to Trump and Republicans, exploiting regulatory uncertainties surrounding Netflix. Netflix concluded Warner Brothers wasn't a must-have after it became clear its deal faced significant regulatory hurdles, and it collected its $2.8 billion termination fee and walked away. This comes to us from LA Times. They say the morning after Netflix clinched its deal to buy Warner Brothers, Paramount Skydance chairman David Ellison assembled a war room of trusted advisors, including his billionaire daddy, Larry Ellison. Furious at Warner Brothers Discovery chief David Zaslav for ending the auction, the Ellisons and their team began plotting their comeback on that crisp December day. To rattle Warner Brothers Discovery and its investors, they launched a three-front campaign: a lawsuit, a hostile takeover bid, and direct lobbying of the Trump administration and Republicans in the Congress. There was a master battle plan, and it was extremely disciplined, said one auction insider who was not authorized to comment publicly. Netflix stunned the industry late Thursday by pulling out of the bidding, clearing the way for Paramount to claim the company that owns HBO, HBO Max, CNN, TBS, the Food Network, and the Warner Brothers Film and Television Studios in Burbank. And as we stated, it was for a $111 billion. The streaming giant's reversal came just hours after co-chief executive Ted Sarandos met with I like how they put that. Attorney General Pam Bondi and a deputy at the White House. It was a cordial session, but the Trump officials told Sarandos that his deal was facing significant hurdles in Washington, according to a person close to the administration who was not authorized to comment publicly. So even before that meeting, the tide had turned for Paramount in a swell of power politics and brinkmanship. Netflix played their cards well. However, Paramount played their cards perfectly, said Jonathan Miller, chief executive of Integrated Media. They did exactly what they had to do and when they had to do it, which was at the very last moment. And key to the victory was Daddy Ellison's $200 billion fortune and his connections to President Trump and congressional Republicans. Paramount also hired Trump's former antitrust chief, attorney Macon Delrahim, to quarterback the firm's legal and regulatory action. Republicans during a Senate hearing this month piled onto Sarandos with complaints about potential monopolistic practices and woke programming. Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah, David Ellison skipped that hearing. This week, however, he attended Trump's State of the Union address in the Capitol chambers and a guest of Senator Lindsey Graham. The two men pose, grinning and giving a thumbs up for a photo that was posted to Graham's X account. On Friday, Netflix said it had received a $2.8 billion payment, a termination fee Paramount agreed to pay to send Netflix packing its bags. Long before David Ellison and his family acquired Paramount and CBS last summer, the 43-year-old tech scion and aircraft pilot already had his sights set on Warner Brothers Discovery. Paramount's assets included MTV, Nickelodeon, and the Melrose Avenue movie studio. Ellison recognized he needed the more robust company of WBD to achieve his ambitions. From the very beginning, our pursuit of Warner Brothers Discovery has been guided by a clear purpose: to honor the legacy of two iconic companies, I hope so, while accelerating our vision of building a next-gen media and entertainment company. Dave Ellison said in a statement on Friday, "We couldn't be more excited for what's ahead." Warner's chief, Zaslav, who had initially opposed the Paramount bid, added, "We look forward to working with Paramount to complete this historic transaction." Netflix, in a separate statement, said it was unwilling to go beyond its $82.7 billion proposal that Warner board members accepted on December 4th. Sarando said, "We believe we would have been strong stewards of Warner Brothers' iconic brands, and that our deal would have strengthened the entertainment industry and preserved and created more production jobs. But this transaction was always a nice to have at the right price, not a must to have at any price," the Netflix chief added. Netflix may have miscalculated the Ellison's family's determination when it agreed February 16th to allow Paramount back into the bidding. Idiots! The Los Gatos, California-based company already prevailed in the auction and had an agreement in hand. Its next step was a shareholder vote. They didn't need to let Paramount back in, but there was a lot of pressure on them to make sure the process wouldn't be challenged, Miller said. In addition, Netflix's stock had also pummeled, and the company had lost a quarter of its value since investors learned the company was making a Warner run. Upon news Netflix had withdrawn, its shares soared Friday nearly 14% to $96.24 a share. Invited back into the auction room, Paramount unveiled a much stronger proposal than the one it submitted December. The elder Ellison pledged to personally guarantee the deal, including $45.7 billion in equity required to close the transaction. And if bankers became worried that Paramount was too leveraged, the tech mogul agreed to put in more money in order to secure the banking financing. The promise was assuaged Warner Brothers Discovery board members who had fretted for weeks that they weren't sure Ellison would sign on the dotted line. Paramount's pressure campaign had been relentless, first winning over theater owners who expressed alarm over Netflix's model that encouraged consumers to watch their movies at home. During the last 2 weeks, Sarandos got dragged into two ugly controversies. First, famed filmmaker James Cameron endorsed Paramount, saying a Netflix takeover would lead to massive job losses in the entertainment industry. Then, a week ago, Trumpy took aim at Netflix board member Susan Rice, a former high-level Obama and Biden administration official. In a social media post, Trump called Rice a no-talent political hack. I'm not going to do that shit. And said that Netflix must fire her or pay the consequences. The threat underscored the dicey environment for Netflix. Additionally, Paramount had sowed doubts about Netflix among lawmakers, regulators, Warner investors, and ultimately the Warner board. Wow. This month, a deadline for the Justice Department to raise issues with Paramount's proposed Warner takeover passed without comment from the Trump regulators. Big surprise. Analysts believe the deal is likely to close, while Paramount WBD does present material antitrust risks, such as higher pay TV prices, lower pay for TV and movie workers. Analysts also see a key pro-competitive effect: improved competition in streaming, with Paramount Plus and HBO Max representing a materially larger or stronger counterweight to number one Netflix. Jesus. In the final days, David Ellison led an effort to flip Warner board members who had firmly supported Netflix. With Paramount's improved offer, several began leaning toward the Paramount deal. On Tuesday, Warner announced that Paramount's deal was promising. On Thursday, Warner's board determined Paramount's deal had topped Netflix, and that's when Netflix surrendered. Paramount had a fulsome 360-degree approach. They approached it financially. They understood the regulatory environment here and abroad in the EU, and they had a game plan for every aspect. Ay, 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 cabrón. So, my friend, that is the saga of the Warner Brothers WBD merger. It is not a done deal yet.
No.
But I don't see anyone challenging or even being able to come close to this deal now that we are here in the end game, if you will. How do you feel about where the cards lie?
This is all about control. That's all it is. It's about control of media. A lot of people have been talking about like quality of movies and what's going to happen to the legacy of Warner Brothers, but I think there's something bigger going on here. What's up, Kenny? I think there's something bigger here. I'm talking about like how this is going to
zoom in right now. was it really far out?
Oh, yeah, man. But no worries. Okay. And I saw this post, and I just want to read off it. It says, one family is about to control CBS, CNN, HBO, and TikTok. They'll buy Warner Brothers for $24 billion in money from Saudi, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. And to win over Trump, they canceled Colbert, blocked a segment from CCOT, and blocked a James Tallarico interview. America has now state compromised media. Huh?
That was a great interview. My wife and I watched it. It was fantastic about a politician that believes there should be a separation between church and state. Who would have thought? Someone who's very religious. Someone who's very religious, but he broke it down in a way that makes sense to the general audience. That's something we can all agree on. And you wanted to block that from being seen on CBS. That is a very slippery slope. And what could be the consequences of that, my friend?
Just us not having these different point of views, having one kind of point of view across CNN, CBS. We already have it on Fox. Them just dominating. And TikTok was a source of news where anybody can get their information out. Now they're having a US version. They can kind of dilute that and change that. A lot of information that was going on about Gaza came from TikTok. People being on the ground, recording what was happening. That's why we found out what was going on. Usually that's something we wouldn't know about until 10 years later, but we were getting real-time information about it. That won't happen anymore with that. Same thing with Twitter's already compromised, right? Like X is compromised because of who owns that. So we're seeing our media, the big mainstream ones, being compromised to be lean, more conservative and more propaganda based, because there's nothing wrong with being conservative at a basis level, but when you're putting the propaganda into it, that's where I think it's going to be a big problem for not only us. So like when we say certain things, it's going to feel like we have no backing because mainstream media is not talking about it, but also the youth looking towards a TikTok and not having all that stuff in there, right? And then you go down, learn further than that to the less important stuff, like the quality of what's going on with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers film and television divisions have done diverse stories. They've given opportunities to people who look different, who act different from what other I guess studios would give, and they take a lot of risk. Even just you think about last year with their slate that they have, that they won with a one battle after another. They're giving an auteur filmmaker who's never made a single dime making movies, $120 million to make a movie that might win Best Picture. Giving Ryan Coogler Sinners opportunity, giving him all that money to make a vampire flick, and also give him the rights to it back in 10 years is amazing. You think about Weapons, you think about rebooted Final Destination, and all these different things that team has done. That might end because once Paramount owns it, they might see you guys are a redundancy. We're going to keep our guys and we're going to fire you. And that's the main thing. People are worried about job loss with Netflix. There's going to be a huge job loss once Paramount buys Warner Brothers, because they're going to have so many people who do the same thing. They have Nickelodeon heads. They also have Cartoon Network heads. Yeah. They're not going to need the Cartoon Network heads if they have the Nickelodeon heads. Those guys are gone. Think 100%. About CBS or CNN versus CBS. They're going to get rid of a lot of the CNN guys. So it's going to be immense job loss, less creativity, and a controlled media that's going to be pushing something that's not healthy for everybody.
Yeah, and I want to speak to our audience, the movie fans, because you best believe this is going to affect the movies that we see. David Ellison is saying that they're committed to 30 movies a year. However, because of the price tag that it costs to pay for Warner Brothers Discovery, that might not be possible. I also want to talk a little bit about Cinema United and how they feel about this. So although Paramount has established a background in theatrical distribution, Cinema United is worried about that outcome as well, which they explained in a statement to the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing in early February. They noted that a combination of Paramount and Warner Brothers would consolidate as much as 40% of each year's domestic box office into a single studio. The CEO, Michael O'Leary, said in a statement, "We have been clear from the outset about our concerns around consolidation, and nothing has occurred within the past 36 hours has changed that. Studio consolidation historically leads to fewer movies being made, and at this juncture, there is no reason to believe that the outcome here will be any different. They are urging regulators to heed the lessons of the past. So in theory, a guaranteed 30 films a year would be a good thing for movie theaters, assuming that they are all shown on the big screen and it's not a combination of theatrical and streaming titles, as has happened with a Disney-owned 20th Century Studios. But some are skeptical that that will pan out. Hollywood historian and author Mark Harris wrote that the idea of a Paramount WB merger producing 30 to 40 movies a year is an absurd fiction. He predicted that the first Warner Brothers, that first Warner Brothers would become the classy label within Paramount, then it will become the specialty or streaming label, and then it will die. Actor Jane Fonda had previously said that regardless of who acquired the company, a consolidation at this scale would be catastrophic for any industry built on free expression. So not only is it going to be impossible for them to put out that much content, but also the type of content that we are going to see is going to be less and less about representation and more about what is deemed what they want to put out. So goodbye to Sinners. Goodbye to Ryan Coogler getting to own his property outright in 20 years. That will be the last of that kind of deal that people of marginalized populations will ever get again.
And anybody, honestly, because even people who aren't marginalized wasn't getting those deals.
But because that was such a historic thing, now it's even sadder because that will be the last time that ever happens. And that is very, very sad because of how far we were getting to even have a deal like Ryan Coogler had. And now that's gone in an instant. like that.
I think a good
In
example of what you're talking about.
$111 billion instant.
I think a good example of what you're talking about in terms of like the 30 movie thing and it's just Disney owning Fox. If you think about what happened to Star Wars, once they bought Fox, there hasn't been a Star Wars movie in so long, right? It's just been straight streaming TV shows, right? And then you think about that's just their brand. You think about Alien. They took Alien out of theaters and made it a TV show. And they took Terminator out of theaters and made it a Netflix animated show. They're taking these things that are historically are usually in theaters. I know all the Terminators are not great, but it's still historically a theatrical release. Even all the Aliens and Predator stuff is not great, but even like Predator, they put Prey on Hulu. You know what I mean? Which that should have been in theaters. So you're right. A lot of the stuff are going to the streaming services now to lift up the streaming service, and these brands are now becoming streaming brands instead of theatrical brands.
Before I get into Kenny's comment, I just want to say I never thought I would live in a world where I wanted Netflix to buy Paramount, to buy Warner Brothers over Paramount. I like months and months and months ago, I preached on this show that it would be detrimental to the film and TV industry if that were to happen, film especially.
Yeah.
And now I have the same sentiments about Paramount because of who owns it, and it's very scary. And what's
even a little worse, right? Because I have to give Netflix credit for the fact that the owner is not bending to the government, right? He's having these conversations.
Yes, he's standing pat.
He's standing pat. Yeah. He's not trying to like, oh, you put a little bit of money in my pocket, I'll start doing all these things. He wasn't bending to that. That's why they backed away, and it was so hard when they were told, hey, there's going to be some regulatory issues for you. That's just them saying, hey, if you don't do what we want, we're going to make this hard for you. And that's why they backed out. They're like, well, we're not gonna compromise ourselves that way. So I respect the Netflix CEO and team on that side of things.
Yeah, no, man, I'm so sad.
I never thought I'd say that.
What do you think about Kenny saying that he wouldn't be surprised if they found a way to renege on the deal that Warner Brothers made with Ryan Coogler and the property Sinners?
If there's any holes in that contract that allows them to do that, they will find it. If there's anything in there that says if you don't do this or you do that or whatever in it, they will definitely do it. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be lawsuits. Okay. It's going to be they'll probably lose it, but they'll look for it.
Let's take a look at some of the properties that they will now own. So now Paramount will own DC Studios, Harry Potter, Transformers, Ninja Turtles, Mission Impossible, The Big Bang Theory, which is a huge moneymaker for them.
Huge.
I don't know why, because I'm not a fan. Star Trek, The Matrix, which we just found out Matrix 5 is being written. I hope it's not like 4. Dune, Top Gun, The Last of Us, The Lord of the Rings, Mad Max, Scream, which is killed after this movie came out, SpongeBob, SquarePants, of course, Godzilla and Kong, The Conjuring universe, which is a huge moneymaker, Mortal Kombat, It, which had a hit series on HBO, Rick and Morty, Scooby-Doo, Indiana Jones, Sonic, The Exorcist, and that's just to name a few.
Yeah, that's not even everything.
Now that we're looking at it this way from, the franchises that we love, I want to ask you about our boy, Mr. Gunn, who is a notorious hater of Trump and everything that he stands for. This deal will not be concluded for at least a year. I could see James Gunn going to David Zaslav and saying, I want out of my deal. I don't see them getting rid of him because of his success and his track record, but I do see a possibility that James Gunn goes to Zaslav and says, I can't work for him. I'm sorry. You need to find a way to get me out of here. What do you think the possibilities are of that happening with James Gunn?
Unfortunately, I don't have as much faith in him as you do. I think that what's going to happen is that he's going to put out Supergirl. It's going to do well. I think that Clayface is going to do well. I think Lanterns could be a hit show. And I think that he's going to create so much success and demand, especially with how Superman did well, that they are not going to be able to fire him and just have to deal with him being a mouthy. And I think he's going to do what he does and continue. I think what will happen is if he messes up in any way in terms of like he can't do what Kevin Feige's going through right now. Like how Kevin Feige's having multiple movies in a row, just not doing well. I think James Gunn won't have that opportunity to do that. So he's going to have to keep producing hits. And I think once he starts slipping up in like a momentum way, then we can see him like, I quit, because he's not going to want to have to fight with them. But I don't think he's going to quit this dream job of his because he has new owners. And I don't want him to, because DC has too many people who have switched like ownership over it, and that's why we've had this mess.
Yeah, the franchise deserves better for sure, but he has been an outspoken hates Trump and the administration, everything they stand for. Dream job, selling your soul. We've seen it happen before in Hollywood. I would hope that he would rest on his morals a little bit more and stand his ground. But you're right. We could see that he bites his tongue and continues if the franchise is being on a successful run. However, I do see a possibility, and I did hear this from our boy John Campea, who said that he could see him, once it's a done deal, going to Zaslav and saying, I'm out of here. Please get me out of my contract. And of course, he will have a plethora of job offers after. You best believe.
Look what Kenny said. I find that really funny.
I know. I'm going to post that in a second. You best believe that James Gunn, if he is to leave DC Studios, will have a ton of offers. What I could see happen is that he leaves DC Studios, he goes back to Marvel, and he becomes the heir apparent of Feige. So when Feige steps down the next 15, 20 years, James Gunn is now in that role. So he still has his dream job. He still is back in the family where he started his big career. And he's in a less, aggressive ownership than I would say Paramount.
And that was what it was supposed to happen in the first place. Like Kevin Feige was queuing him up to take over.
Yes. It goes back to what the plan was originally. Or what he could do is James Gunn is going to be heading the Valiant cinematic universe by 2028.
He would kill that. He would do so good. Those are the type of characters that he loves, right? And
he does love those type of characters.
They're not mainstream, so he can do whatever he wants with them for the most part, and people won't get.
He can make it his.
Yeah, like the Valiant fans will get mad, and there's a lot of them, but there's not enough where I think it will be a problem if he changes things. So that would be amazing. But if he does leave DC because he just can't handle the political aspect of it, I could definitely see him keep being open arms. Hey,
what we won't get any more of Batman. I got comics this week.
Nice.
Man, Valiant is awesome. I like Valiant a lot. It's a valiant effort. No, that was what are, now that we've laid out our feelings and possibly James Gunn's feelings and how detrimental this could be to the overall landscape of Hollywood and movies and theaters as we see it, is there any positives that you could take away from a Paramount purchasing Warner Brothers?
So I have two. One is very selfish. One is an actual true possibility. So the selfish one is that I'm a physical media collector, as you can see
You are?
behind me.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that. No,
You didn't know. Look, who knew?
who knew?
Netflix doesn't really believe in physical media, and Warner Brothers is one of the more prolific people who put out physical media for their movies. So the
Yep.
negative for me for Netflix for owning them was them kind of like just cutting that production out, right? Just
Right.
or making it more boutique or whatever, just making it harder to get films from Warner Brothers.
Right. Because they
Paramount
are actually one of the few that has a physical media
production place.
Yes, I can't think of the name. It's a you know what I'm saying though. They have
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
a faction, or you know, like
Yeah.
they have a carved out
Yes.
department, right? Yeah.
To actually do it. That's all they do is make physical media.
And that is dying, but it's beautiful that Warner Brothers still has that.
Yeah, and Paramount also has it. So Paramount still believes in physical media as well. So that's like the only positive directly from them that I have is the fact that Paramount they will keep that. And if they can combine it, look, physical media ownership is dying, but it's still $1 billion industry every year. So they're not going to just throw that away. So that definitely is a positive, them owning Warner Brothers. That will stay intact. And it might actually be better because Paramount's physical media is really dope. So that could be cool. The second positive I have is actually this failing, right? I think the positive there's a possibility that this might not go through, right? And I think the positive aspect of that is that if it does not go through, the money that Warner Brothers will get from it falling apart will get them out of debt.
And they stay, and they just stay.
And they just stay because if they're out of debt, the reason why Zaslav wants to get rid of Warner Brothers is because he bought it, and the people who owned it before didn't reveal how much debt they were in. They lied.
Right.
So
but
he's been
he
trying
also
to get them out of this
came in to sell it. That was his main mission, was to come in, make it to be able to be sold to the highest bidder. That was his job when he came in to Warner Brothers a couple years ago. And he fulfilled his job. He had one of the biggest years of Warner Brothers of the past decade.
Yeah.
And primed them to be a hot commodity for bidding war between two of the biggest studios in the game currently. So he
did his job.
Did it.
But that leak audio of him saying, hey, this is probably not going to go through. We'll get that something $1 billion and we'll clear our debt and we'll just move on and keep doing things as usual. And I think that is a big possibility. I think so many different organizations are going to be lobbying to the regulators about how this should not happen. It's going to be a monopoly, how it's going to hurt America's media landscape. And I think there's a possibility that it might take a year and a half, maybe 2 years because of how much fight it might be in there. And I think that it might just fall through. And then Warner Brothers just continues to be his own entity. And I'm hoping that happens. I hope that another studio doesn't buy Warner Brothers. If someone else takes it off of Zaslav, that's not a studio, fine. Mm-hmm. But I don't want another studio to own Warner Brothers.
No, particularly not. No, I don't want them. But would it be badass Star Trek versus Transformers? No.
But doesn't Paramount own both of those? They can still do that.
I don't want Pennywise being like, set your phasers to stun. You know, that'd be crazy.
Oh God.
Oh man. Well, you guys, we are getting towards the end of the bidding war saga, and it seems like Paramount will be shaking Warner Brothers' hands in a successful buyout of Warner Brothers. Let us know what you guys think. This is hurting my heart to even say it out loud. I don't even know where my head's at. Drop a comment below. Are you sad? Are you happy? Is there any positives? Is there any negatives? Share your thoughts. We are here for you. We are mourning together, and we'll be there for you. Never mind. Paramount owns Friends now.